Good evening, dear viewers. My name is Mohammed Al-Jasmi, and I'll be with you for the next half hour for our special coverage coming to you live from KTV2 studios to remember this day. Today marks the 33rd anniversary of the brutal Iraqi invasion of Kuwait. On this day, August the 2nd of the year 1990, Iraqi forces invaded the state of Kuwait. The invasion was a surprise attack, and within 2 days, Iraqi forces had captured the capital. The invasion led to a humanitarian crisis, as hundreds of thousands of Kuwaiti civilians were forced to flee their homes. The United Nations Security Council condemned the invasion and demanded that Iraq withdraw its forces. The United States and its allies began a military buildup in the region, and in January of 1991, they launched a military campaign to liberate Kuwait. The Gulf War lasted for 6 weeks and ended with the liberation of Kuwait. The human cost of the invasion was staggering, as thousands of Kuwaiti civilians were killed or wounded, and hundreds of thousands were displaced from their homes. The invasion also led to the destruction of much of Kuwait's infrastructure, including its oil industry, disrupting decades' worth of advancements and developments. The Iraqi invasion of Kuwait was a major event in the Middle Eastern history and had a profound impact on the region. Beyond the immediate devastation of the deaths of thousands of people, it had also increased tensions in the region, having just come out of another destabilizing war. However, despite the geopolitical balance of the Gulf being shaken, the region and more broadly the international community united behind Kuwait and its just cause of liberation. Although the brutal invasion would leave Kuwait scarred, its infrastructure bombed and ruined, the families separated, some broken, and its growth and prosperity brought to a sudden halt, a resistance was formed, and it is thanks to them and our allies that we celebrate the Kuwaiti liberation. The invasion led to the death of thousands of people and caused widespread damage to Kuwait's infrastructure. But the invasion of Kuwait is a reminder of the importance of peace and security in the Middle East. It is also a reminder of the human cost of war and the importance of resolving conflicts peacefully. Before we continue with our special coverage, we'll take a short break to look at this report about the beginning of the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait.
On August 2nd, 1990, the then regime troops invaded Kuwait. It began when huge military units from the army of the former Iraqi regime crossed the Kuwaiti border, where it met the fierce Kuwaiti army, the resistance group, and an international force consisting of Arab, GCC, and Western allies. The brutal aggression was not limited to Kuwait military only, but it was also followed by the burning policy, which extended its destructive impact on the Kuwaiti land, sea, and air environment, after it resorted to bombing and burning oil wells and pumping oil into the sea. Kuwait's defense forces were rapidly overwhelmed, and within hours, Kuwait City was captured, and the invaders had then established a provincial government. By annexing Kuwait, the occupation forces gained control of 20% of the world's oil reserves, and for the first time, a substantial coastline on the Arabian Gulf. During the invasion, the late Emir, Sheikh Jabir al-Ahmed al-Jabir al-Sabah, established a government in the city of Taif in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which included the Crown Prince at the time, the late Father Emir, Sheikh Saad al-Abdullah Salim al-Sabah, and several ministers and leaders of the armed forces. The late Emir, Sheikh Jabir al-Ahmed al-Jabir al-Sabah, began to mobilize international support for the restoration of the state of Kuwait in all forums. While the Crown Prince at the time, the late Father Emir, Sheikh Saad al-Abdullah al-Sabah, worked on preserving the legitimacy of Kuwait, regulating the conditions of the government, and ensuring a decent life for Kuwaitis abroad and at home, as he supported the Kuwaiti resistance groups inside Kuwait and diplomatic efforts of its missions abroad. Moreover, the Minister of Foreign Affairs at that time, the late Emir, Sheikh Sabah al-Ahmed al-Jabir al-Sabah, worked on mobilizing Arab and international diplomats to promote Kuwait's just cause. From the first hours of the invasion, the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC countries, hastened to move on the premise that any attack on any member state is an attack on all countries of the Cooperation Council. On August 3rd, 1990, the GCC foreign ministers held an emergency meeting in Cairo, Egypt, on the sidelines of an Arab League Council meeting. The efforts of the GCC countries also succeeded in convening an emergency Arab summit in Cairo on August 10th, 1990. During the meetings, the GCC countries rejected the aggression in Kuwait and demanded for the invading forces' unconditional withdrawal from the country. Moreover, in the second week of January, GCC defense ministers met in Riyadh, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and after a comprehensive study of the political and military situation, the defense ministers agreed on the need to implement an offensive action to liberate Kuwait. During this period, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia played an important role by mobilizing its forces and making contacts with Arab and international powers to hold an emergency summit. The kingdom also welcomed Kuwaitis in its land, providing financial and military support for Kuwait throughout the occupation period. Moreover, the kingdom invited several countries to send troops, becoming the main base of the coalition that had about 800,000 troops from 30 countries. Thanks to the efforts by GCC countries and other allies, the United Nations Security Council issued vital resolutions, starting with Resolution 660, in which it demanded the invading Iraqi forces to withdraw from the state of Kuwait unconditionally. And the decisions continued until the issuance of Resolution 678, which authorized using military force to liberate the state of Kuwait.
Today we remember the martyrs who sacrificed their lives for Kuwait, the martyrs that came from all walks of life, from the soldiers and the civil servants who fought and died defending their country, to the civilians who were killed in the resistance and the crossfire, and even the children who were executed by the Iraqi forces. The martyrs are remembered for their courage, their sacrifice, and their love of their country. There were also thousands of Kuwaiti prisoners of war who were captured by Iraqi forces during the invasion. These prisoners of war were subject to torture, abuse, and neglect. Many of them died in captivity. Joining us today in the studio is Dr. Ibrahim Behbahani, at the time a young doctor during the Iraqi invasion. Welcome, Dr. Behbahani.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
I wasn't young, I was already consultant.
You were a consultant at the time. Yes. You were practicing or studying to become?
No, I was studying was an extra material.
Okay.
I was already a consultant or surgery and or medicine.
Well, I would like to ask you about the Red Crescent's role during the invasion.
Yes.
But before that, I just want to ask you about the moment you found out.
It was an early morning. It was, I think, around 2:30. My wife, she came and awake me for sleep and saying there is something wrong happening. The radio and there is lots of speak about the Iraqis has invaded Kuwait. Mm-hmm. Although everybody say that the invasion what happened at 2 o'clock morning, but according to our information, the invasion happened at 12 o'clock. Mm-hmm. The first person, the soldier that was injured, was one of the guard of the TV.
Okay.
He was coming, passing
the gates?
Here. Mm-hmm. He was going to take the duty at 12. But when he reached the area, they asked him to go left toward the bridge, and some Iraqi stopped him with the rifle, and he said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I am on duty for the TV and radio station." He said, "I advise you to go home." He said, "This is my duty, I can't go." The thing that he raised the rifle and he aimed at his leg and he shot him. And then he went outside the area and tried searching for the hospital, and he went to Mubarak Hospital, where at that same time Dr. Yusuf al-Nasb, the director of the hospital, for the medical emergency, had information about him, and they made the necessary arrangement for his hospital admission. But there was one problem, that he died in the morning. The reason for this death, that the blood was not available.
There was no blood.
He was a rare group, Group A, Group O.
Group O.
Okay, so you have to take it from the bank of blood bank, but the group was not able. I think he was the first death of the war, and he was injured at 12 p.m.
Now, you were telling me earlier that when you discovered that Iraq had invaded, you told your family that my place is not here.
Yeah, but I mean, immediately I went with my wife. We dressed and we went to my father-in-law's house, and we noticed that as we passed the main street of Salmiya, that there are long queue of people on the machines, the cash machine of the bank. There is about 5 or 7 branches of the bank there, and everybody wants to pick money, Kuwaitis or non-Kuwaitis. So we went to my father-in-law's house. Everybody was gathering, and we were receiving calls from Salabakhat area, where the road going to Matla and coming to the Dawar Adam, the roundabout of osteology, and he was ringing and said, all this army, where is going? I mean, Kuwait would not be able to have them, and they were coming down from the road from both sides. They're going up and going down. Both of them are going down. At that time, there was a strong fighting by the brave soldiers of National Guards, because their base is close by. They went to the roundabout and they start fighting with the Iraqis. At the same time, they were joined by the army, which is also the other side, and then they joined the same time by the police who were on the emergency, the cars of the police. They joined them from Kefan area, and they started fighting, very severe fighting, between around 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock, and they continued until 11.
Just to clarify, this is 5 o'clock in the morning.
Morning.
Yeah.
And until 11 a.m. At that time, they have a phone call from the Crown Prince, God bless him, Sheikh Saad Abdullah, asked them to stop fighting because they will not be able to resist all this amount of people coming. The good thing is that incident, that everybody was helping the soldiers and picking up the injured and sending them to the different hospital, because a single hospital will not be able to receive them.
It couldn't handle the amount.
The amount.
Yeah.
And the control of this was from emergency ambulance service, طوارئ طبية. And the chairman at that time was Dr. Anyway, then we'll come back, okay. So he was doing all the necessary arrangement to move the injured to safe place as quick as possible. And at that time I was after I went to Mujamma Salmiya, and there was an injured person who came from the area close the palace, Amir Palace.
Ah, yes.
Okay, and the guy who took him, he dropped him in the Salmiya Polyclinic. And when I arrived, they said, we don't know how to manage him. I said, you have to go. And they took him an ambulance. I was following the ambulance until we handed him to the Mubarak Hospital. The doctor who was in charge of the emergency, he was my teacher in the faculty of medicine, and he asked me to handle the emergency and teach the volunteers. The whole thing went continuous until sunset. In the morning, we received one jeep, white color, and it was belonged to the National Guard.
Dr. Behbahani, I apologize for interrupting you,
yeah.
But we have to cut away for a special
announcement. But just this one, because we have to some, because there was 2 soldiers dead in the car, and there was a soldier at the top. Not a soldier, he was a lieutenant, first lieutenant.
Okay.
And it was Shahid Busha'an al-Mutiri. And the problem that he has, all his wall of stomach has gone. And his leg was broken. Both legs were around the head. But he was smiling. And he was looking at the sky on the right side. And finally, I decided that I hold the broken part, and 2 volunteers took the other part. The story is long. I will stop there. He died after 2 hours, but his family were around him, and they took him themselves with his father and his brother, and they buried them in the graveyard.
Dr. Behbahani, we will come back to the story, but we just have to cut away to some breaking news. The National Assembly has adjourned a session and will make an announcement. Rather, we're going to take a short break and take a look at this report about the Martyrs of Kuwait.
The 33rd anniversary of the brutal Iraqi invasion of Kuwait. An eternal national epic throughout history. The resistance of Kuwaiti people in the face of invaders. The anniversary returns to remind us of the martyrs. Their cherished sacrifice inspires us with redemption. Their great deeds help us weave the banners of freedom and glory.
Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately we will have to cut this special coverage short. We will have to cut away to the National Assembly with a special announcement. But before we conclude, I would just like to thank our special guest, Dr. Ibrahim Behbahani.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving us your time and sharing these stories.
Thank you.
For all the viewers at home. With that said, turns out, ladies and gentlemen, we have a little bit more time. So, Dr. Behbahani,
Again,
if you wouldn't mind telling us a bit
Yeah.
about the Red Crescent and
Yes.
its role in the Iraqi invasion.
the Red Crescent, okay. The Red Crescent, actually, I was a member of the board in May
Okay.
1990. So it happened that the war started that area, and it was in the summer. So most of the board members were outside. So I was faced that I am in the emergency situation and I have to do something. With the experience of more than 40 years, I was able to manage what I can do. With the support of most of the people in power, especially Dr. Abdurrahman Awadi. He was the deputy director of the Kuwait Crescent, and I was in contact with him, and I was taking the order from directly, which mostly was coming from His Highness Sheikh Sadabel. And we did a lot of things. I mean, if you specify one, you need.
I would like to ask you about these secret clinics. During our research, we were told there were secret operation rooms or clinics throughout the areas.
This was suggestion of the emergency
medical committee,
medical area. I hope that the name comes to my mind, but now I'm 73 years old. Anyway, they gave us information that they want to do secret operation rooms in private houses. And the order came from Dr. Yusuf al-Nasr, the director of Mubarak Hospital and the director of the Hawali area.
Okay.
I mean, what happened is usually he will call me and he tell me that we have a full theater to take it due to allocation of certain houses. He gives you the address and he tells you whom to receive the area and to handle the thing. And I did 2 areas. One was in Mishrif.
Okay.
And it was fully equipped with the theater and beds for rest until we can take them out.
And you had equipment and medicines
and
everything.
Everything was taken to the houses. And we have the names of the people who will be going directly to the area if they are needed. Okay. And later I had the information that the request has come from the government in Saudi Arabia and from the United Army.
Okay.
Oh, that was number one. Second one was in Sha'b.
Where you were working in Mishrif and Sha'b, you were.
No, I was working mainly in Jabriya because Mubarak Hospital in Jabriya.
Okay.
But I personally prepared two areas, and Dr.
Yusuf al-Nasr.
Other doctor, he put the whole theater in his home in Dasma.
Could you tell me where in the house exactly? Was it
usually in the basement?
Okay, to try to hide it.
Yeah, to hide the whole thing, because you have to make sure that if you have any injured people, you can give them the service without interference.
Without any worry that someone will come.
And especially you want to secure the staff, number one, and then secure the soldier, the brave soldier who has resisting in the name of Kuwait.
So would the doctor live in this house with the family?
The doctor usually, I mean, it's not necessary that the doctor, the house belongs to the doctor.
Yeah.
But usually the house owner, he knows exactly who's in charge of this area. Theater.
Okay.
Okay, but alhamdulillah, that we didn't need to use it.
Alhamdulillah, that's a good.
The only one that which we did in Dasma, he was actually a surgeon.
He was a surgeon himself.
Mustafa al-Musawi, Dr. Mustafa al-Musawi.
I wanted to ask you, did you ever have to treat someone outside of a medical setting, on the streets or?
No, I think most of the people that we have them, they are injured badly. If they are not followed by the Iraq soldier, we just take them to the hospital. And there is information from Dr. Yusuf al-Nasr that they deal with them separately and ensure they are sure that the Iraqis, if they come, they wouldn't know that there is
a person, a resistance fighter.
Because all the hospital, they had two Iraqi doctors. One of them civilian, and one of them is actually is an officer.
From the military itself?
He is military staff, but at the same time he is a doctor.
And this was to monitor
yes.
the patients that are coming in, who's going out?
Not a monitor. It is actually, it is if they pick somebody has done something resistant, they will
go and take.
This is the main thing. And there was many accidents that we have people injured, and they were after one of the accidents that happened in Jabriya. It happened, I think, around 10th or 12th of August. Two friends, they are living in Bayan. They wanted their cars. I don't know why they have thought about it, and they want to go round about in the area, and they ended in Jabriya, the main road where the police station is there. Okay, they went smoothly, and then suddenly when they reached the police station, the guy, he might, I think accidentally or due tension, he pressed on the al-benzene.
On the gas?
Right. So the car jumped. He jumped, and they start to shoot him. Shot both of them. And then around 12 cars, they followed them with full soldiers and with guns. He went to the roundabout to the left toward the hospital, which we have private hospital there, and then to left to go to the main road, which is the Fahil road.
Yes.
And he was going fast.
Trying to escape.
And behind them there was more than 12 cars with the soldiers. And then he came to the bridge, which is separating the area from Bayan and Mishraf. Okay, and he entered there, and I think at that stage, both of them were injured. So he went on the Rasif.
Yeah.
Okay, and then he hit one of the houses. Now the driver, he came down and started to run toward the block 11, قطعة 11.
Yes.
Then, and there was a guy who was Azmi with his family. They are just putting down their food and materials that they have. And he went and he pushed the big person with the father, and he went in the house. The father noticed that he is full of blood.
Full of blood?
Because he was injured.
Yeah.
Okay, so they took him and they put him on the roof. All the people in the all district, they have all numbers of the doctor or surgeon, which they can call them from house instead of going to home. So incidentally, the number which was with him was Dr. Abdullah Babani, my cousin.
Oh, okay.
And he was a surgeon. They called him and they said, we have so and so. He said, keep him, I'll come immediately. And he went to him and go to the roof, and he managed to get out the bullet, and he sutured him and keep him in the area for 3 days until he was certified and release him. That number one is a simple. The second one is the side boy with the driver. Mm-hmm. He went out and he climbed the wall, drove himself toward the area of Bayan Qata Ashra.
Okay.
Okay, and then he ran forward and passed the road. He saw a gentleman standing at his home. And incidentally, that gentleman was a Shimali. He was one of teacher of first aid with the Red Crescent.
Really?
He was training the people in the hospital and in the areas that they asked him. So he pushed him at his home, and he went inside the house. And then he realized that all his clothes were full of blood. So they put them in the bathroom and they cleaned them. Okay, and then he changed his dress from the dishtasha to pyjama. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then he closed the wounds, mm-hmm. and he pushed him in the car, and immediately to Mubarak Hospital, which I was involved here. When he arrived in Mubarak Hospital, he came out of the car and he said, hadith. Mm-hmm. That means the accident. No, bullet.
Oh, a bullet wound.
Okay, so I went to him immediately. I give him
told him to,
don't. Yeah. And said it is a road accident. And I said it loudly. I went to the Iraqis that they were guarding there to hear what I said.
Yeah.
And I took him inside to the theater immediately. As I was coming out, we start to see that all the Iraqi cars, around 12 cars, with plenty of soldiers. They are coming with flashes.
That's the sign, okay.
Okay, and when he arrived the area, the soldiers came out. Within 2 minutes, they were on the roof with the rifles all around. Mm-hmm. And if anything happened, then everybody would go injured or die. So we came down and he asked the guards that you have an injured person. He said, no, we have an accident, because that's what I said.
Dr. Behbahani, I apologize for interrupting again.
Because the answer is
well, we will be back momentarily. We'll take a short break now, ladies and gentlemen. Take a look at this report about the martyrs.
وطن النهار انت النهار يا وطني وطن النهار انت النهار يا وطني
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our special coverage about the remembrance of the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait. with us in the studio is
That,
Dr.
that
Ibrahim Al-Bahani.
the question is difficult.
It is, no, of course, we need more than just a half an hour
Okay.
to cover
Thank you.
these stories.
Yeah.
But I'd like to ask you, could you tell us, there were stories of you having to bury some bodies.
Yeah. As I know, I am a member of the board of Red Crescent.
Mhm.
So one of our duties is to manage the dead bodies. On the third day, which is 4th of August, I received a call from the director of ambulance emergency service, and he said that we want to do Red Crescent to do something that is difficult. I said, go ahead. And he said, we want you to go in to Kaifan and remove the dead bodies of Iraqis, because they tried with the ambulances to get them out, but the Iraqis, they shoot at the ambulance.
Okay.
So I said, okay, I'll do it. I went there next day. We were three ambulance, and we reached the area which is behind the Kuwait Club.
Okay.
Okay, Masjid al-Shamrukh.
Mhm.
And we just get one horn, and a guy come out, two guys, and they said, Dr. Ibrahim, you just follow us.
Okay.
And we went there until the small garden at the angle between Kaifan and Shamia, and there was three soldiers dead and with bad smell. I think they died three days before. We put the disinfection, and then we took the body. The aim was to take them to Salabakhat
Cemetery?
graveyard.
Okay.
So we went there. The Iraqi were at the main door, and they said that you cannot bury him. You have to go to the headquarters and the Al-Watani Bank in Salabakhat, which is in front the club, the sport club. So I went there, and still they didn't want to receive it. They saw that they are injured, there is no identity, and they asked us to take them to the medical service, which was in the school of Doha for children. So we went there. They came. The smell is too much, and they said that no, we can't take it. Take them, give the car to your assistant, and you go home and let him go toward the border. I said I will not leave him because he is with me, and I have to secure him. Because we have many incidents that the emergency ambulances, they go Iraq and they don't come back. Where they disappear, we don't know. Anyway, we took the car with the bodies, and we went until someone before Abdali, the area that is like a bridge.
I'm forgetting the name.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah.
What there, I was expecting that there was a petrol station there, and there was also a police station. But both of them, they were closed, and we don't have oil. But the thing that when we arrived there, the whole area with all the vision is full of the rifles. Tanks, soldier carriers. I mean, the area usually it is a desert. You are seeing all the areas full close to each other. So anyway, we went until about 30 kilos. Then I felt that I wouldn't be able to reach the border. So I stopped. I asked one soldier, do you have petrol? He said that there is a petrol after a couple of kilos. We went there. They refused to give us the order. They don't want to give oil, petrol.
Yeah.
So I maneuvered, and finally I spoke to the officer. I said, these are your bodies. It is not ours. You have three choices. Select one. Either you allow me, I will bury them here. Or you give me petrol, I'll take them to Abdali. Or otherwise, you take the bodies and you take the responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Then finally they accepted to give us 30 liters. We reached Abdali. They refused to take bodies. And they said that we have to take them to Basra, to the hospital there. We reached there. They refused to take it. And they asked us to go in the desert to an area, the name, 2 hours inside the desert.
Mm-hmm.
So we followed that. We reached there around 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock evening. Then the person who was in charge, he said that we'll take them and you go away or you have a lunch.
Yeah.
Said you will take them after they are in their tabut, because I have to make sure that you have already received them. I am representing the international cross. That's not my own
job.
Okay. So I went there, and surprising, there were big holes and thousands of boxes for the bodies dead. And there was around 10 of this size. I mean, if you think about the number for the people to be killed, if all this is true, then the Iraqis has suffered a big
lot of casualties. Yeah.
So anyway, but finally we came back to Kuwait, and we entered Kuwait about 3 a.m. Now it is about nearly close to 20 hours has passed that we reached Kuwait, and the communication start to work when we passed the mountain close to Jahra. And we called the emergency, and they were very happy that we came back, because all the ambulances had come before they didn't come.
They didn't make the trip back.
So anyway, he told me that don't come to the Subhan, because the place is in Subhan, and he asked me to go home, and he said that I'd see you next morning.
Well, Dr.
And that is the first beginning of the burying of the bodies. After 5 days, there was a big maneuver that we buried in one day. 70 male and 5 women and 5 children.
Okay.
Next day, added to them the other groups which were in Farwaniya and the other areas. In total, the buried was 140 children, newborn, and around 120 women, and 120 gentlemen.
Okay.
And the women were around 40 or 50. That is the beginning. There was more later, but it is, I mean, the story will not finish. I mean, you one story to another story, another story.
Actually, speaking of stories, could you tell us the story of the martyr Fahd al-Ahmed? Of the martyr Fahd al-Ahmed and what you remember?
Fahd al-Ahmed, it is not me that I say, but Fahd al-Ahmed was one is houses which is close to the back door of Mubarak Hospital. What happened that he received a call early morning, and he was asleep, they told them that Iraqi has invaded Kuwait. So immediately he dressed and took his driver, and he went directly to the Dasman hospital, Dasman Palace. Although they warned them that there is 2 minutes, okay?
I apologize, but we have to cut away right now for a short break.
But Sa'adin Badithin.
I can't, it's out of my control, unfortunately. But ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of our special coverage, where we remember the heroic sacrifices of the martyrs of Kuwait during the Iraqi invasion, as well as the countless prisoners of war. We hope that this discussion with our dear guest, Dr. Ibrahim Behbahani, was informative and sheds light on Kuwait's heroes. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your night.